Everybody, welcome back to my Zero Carb Life. I'm so pumped. I have Dr. Ken Berry with me here today. Dr. Berry, I told you I'm a little nervous about the topic that we're going to discuss, and I'm going to start much more broad, but there will be a little portion later on where I'm going to ask for your opinion on 4 things. So, welcome back.
It's my pleasure. You know, I love chatting with you, Kelly.
Thank you. So, I know that you have a passion for trying to reach as many people as possible. And I've heard you say that if you were to convince, let's say, all of America to do a fairly short list of things, that you could probably change dramatically the health of about 80% of the people. Where would you start?
So it's a very short list, and it's the same exact list that I've been talking about since 2017. And the list has not changed. So there are 3 things that if every American, every human removed them from their diet, we would reverse 80% of the chronic disease in America and around the world. Number 1, remove all added sugar from your diet and most of the natural sugar. Most people know that drinking Coke or Pepsi is dumb. Most people know that. People who are drinking, 4 or 5 a 6-pack of Coke a day, they just don't care right now. And that's fine. They're grown a human. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
But if you removed all the added sugar from cereals, from soft drinks, from pre-prepared stuff, if it's got added sugar in it, don't buy it, don't eat it. But then most of the naturally occurring sugar, so this would be all the fruit juice that people, they drink pomegranate juice or grapefruit juice, apple, grape, orange, and they think that's healthy because it's been health washed.
Yeah.
It's so much advertising that they're like, oh no, it's non-GMO, organic, fresh squeezed Florida orange juice. It's just a glass of sugar. When you look at anthropology, humans have never ingested as much sugar as we've ingested for the last 50 years, ever. Number 2, remove all the grains from your diet. Wheat, rice, oats, corn are the big 4, but all of them, I think, none of them have any health benefits. None of them have any nutrition that you can't get better from another source. And so people may not know this, but wheat, rice, oats, and corn are commodities. That's how they're looked at by governments. They're not even considered food. They're considered commodities that you can export and import and ship and sell and use as kind of a leverage in international relations. Don't eat commodities. Commodities are not food. People think, no, whole grain wheat, rolled oats. No, these are poverty foods. These are starvation foods. If what you're trying to do is optimize your health and reverse chronic disease, then grains play no role in that whatsoever.
Yes.
And then step 3 is to remove all vegetable seed oils from your diet. Canola, corn oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, safflower, sunflower. These, again, have been health washed. People think, oh, they're low in saturated fat. Well, that's not a good thing. You've been tricked. You need saturated fat. Saturated fat is good for you. Replace all of the vegetable seed oils with animal-sourced fats like butter, beef tallow, bacon grease, ghee. And then I'm not really opposed to coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil if you can assure that they're unadulterated, because it's super common for the companies that make and import these to cut them with soybean or canola oil because those oils are much cheaper. And it's virtually impossible to detect that. So that's why if you stick with beef tallow, bacon grease, lard, and butter, that's hard to fake. You can pretty much tell immediately if those are real or not. And they are also the fats that humans have been eating for the longest period of time of our existence. Now, a lot of people right now are really up in arms about all the food colors and the food dyes.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, Kelly? If you eliminate things that contain added sugar, grains, and vegetable seed oils, you're going to be eating virtually nothing that contains red dye 40 or artificial flavors or artificial dyes. You're not going to be eating those things to start with because you're going to eliminate 100% of the ultra processed food from your diet. if you eliminate those three things I just talked about. Just those three things, if every American removed those from their diet, not only would you have pharmaceutical companies filing bankruptcy, you would have big food companies filing bankruptcy. There would be medical specialists who would be looking for a job. They wouldn't have anything to do because, just for example, the rate of childhood type 2 diabetes, the rate of childhood fatty liver, the rate of childhood obesity, if you eliminated just those three things, would plummet. And there are doctors now who specialize in pediatric hepatology. They specialize in fatty liver in children, which should not even exist. There are endocrinologists whose entire practice is type 2 diabetes in children. That shouldn't even be a thing. That shouldn't exist. And then so many pediatricians have specialized in childhood obesity. That would go away. They would be looking for a job. They'd be moonlighting in an emergency room somewhere because they couldn't fill up their appointment book anymore. Yeah. And so that's the three things everybody needs to be focusing on, eliminating from their diet. And most people who watch your channel, they've already done that. But I guarantee you've got friends and family.
Yes.
That if you say to them, you need to go carnivore, that's too far outside of Overton's window, which is right. What's acceptable to even talk about. A lot of people just aren't ready to hear that.
Yeah.
And I was carnivore long before I started making carnivore videos, because I feel like talking about low carb and talking about keto, that's a natural progression. That shifts the window of conversation, because on low carb and keto, you're just naturally going to be eating more meat and eggs and seafood, right? Just by definition. Because you've eliminated so much junk that's not real food, you got to eat something. And then after a few years of talking about low carb and keto, I felt like everybody was ready for carnivore, which I was already doing privately. And I would mention it occasionally, but I wasn't like making videos and saying, hey, you need to do this, until I had moved the conversational window enough for that there was a large enough chunk of people that would say, okay, I mean, I'm already eating a ton of meat and eggs and seafood anyway. I'm just going to do this 90-day carnivore thing and try that. And that's when I feel like the dam really broke, because, so as well as I do, for some people, low carb's not nearly enough. It might help a little, but it's not going to get them where they want to go. For some people, keto is not enough. It'll move the needle, but it's not going to get them to where they want to go. For some, I'd say 10, 15% of the population with obesity, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, they need to be carnivores. It's not 100%, but it's a chunk.
Yeah.
And then the time was ripe to talk about that. And I think it resonated really well with a lot of people who were at their wits' end with low carb or keto. They're like, yeah, it helped, but I'm not where I want to be. Here's the next step.
Yeah. Oh, I love all that so much. Yes. So for me, cutting out the very last of the vegetables, the very last of the fiber, was what gave me the most results when it comes to IBS and anxiety. So yeah, some of us really need it, and we'll probably never go back. All right. When I wrote down a list of things I predicted you would say, definitely, I know you well enough to know that those were going to be on there. If we were to convince people to do anything else that would affect 80%, I know that you always say, spend more time outside, get sunshine and movement. I'm a huge fan of that. Less time on our phones, more time in the sun. Lay in a pitch dark room for 8 hours without a screen on. I feel like if everybody just did that, they say, well, I struggle with sleep. Well, partly because we're eating garbage. We're never outside. We get no exercise, and our rooms aren't dark, and we're staring at a phone. So just give yourself that 8 hours.
I have a YouTube video about all the sleep hygiene hacks that will help you get better sleep. And that's helped a lot of people. But I think it's very important to say, and for people to understand, that what you do in the morning, in your morning, affects your sleep more than a lot of the hacks in that video, more than a lot of tips and tricks in that sleep hygiene video. You need to get morning sun first thing in the morning, even if it's winter, even if it's cloudy. This is something that, unless you study this stuff, unless you're a nerd like me, you don't realize this. People say, well, I mean, it's a cloudy winter day. It's dumb to go out. There's no sun. No, that's wrong.
Right.
Even on the darkest, cloudiest winter day. The amount of light you're going to receive if you go outside is anywhere from 10 to 100 times more intense, brighter than your indoor lighting. Even if you turn on every light in the house,
Right.
it is 10 to 100 times brighter outside, even on the darkest winter day that's just overcast, no sun visible whatsoever. But our human eye is so good at adjusting quickly to light that it's hard to really notice that. You think, well, it's just as bright in here as it is outside. No, it's not. You've got to go outside in the morning to reset your circadian rhythm, to reset your clock. That tells your body this is getting up time. This is wake up time. Therefore, now I know when bedtime should be.
Yes.
That helps so many people to do that. And we've gotten feedback from thousands of people like, I thought you were full of crap about the going out in the winter day and winter mornings, but that's really helped my sleep a lot.
We were intended to not be sitting indoors all day.
Absolutely.
The only other things I wrote down was having some outlets for stress, whether it's hobbies you enjoy. I know you and Nisha, you've got your farm. She has her greenhouse and books, and y'all have so many hobbies, singing and music, children. It's also good.
What a hobby.
Yes, right. It's just things you love. And a lot of people cannot list one hobby, not one thing they did. We work, we eat junk to console ourselves. I don't mean we, you know what I mean? Humanity. Sit indoors, and the only hobby is literally chewing and scrolling. Chewing and scrolling. And I really feel like having hobbies, even if it's just taking walks with people you love, wonderful.
Let me just say something quickly about that so people understand why that. Because, you know, we hear these kind of things that you say and I say. It's like, you know, put down your phone and go outside, find a hobby, manage your stress. And for a lot of people, that's not that helpful when we say that. They need to know why. Not only am I a doctor, I'm also an animal biologist and have studied mammalogy and primatology for decades. Humans we have monkey minds. We just evolved to be busy, to be constantly thinking and constantly planning and doing the next thing. And what's the next? Where are we going? We're going over that hill tomorrow. We're going to find this or do that. That's when we're happiest. Okay. We are not, when you're sitting on the phone, on the couch, and you're scrolling on TikTok and you're munching on some snack, you might feel happy, but that's not really happiness. That's a simulacrum of happiness. That's pseudo happiness. That's placating your monkey mind, but it's not happiness. Happiness is when you've got goals, when you've got new adventures coming up, when you're planning new things, when you're having new ideas, meeting new people. That's when we're truly, truly happy. And the managing stress thing really ticks me off because it's like, what does that even mean? Get rid of stress in your life. Okay, so divorce my spouse, quit my job, and get rid of all the bills, and then what? Then what happens? Well, then you're bankrupt and lonely. That's not happy. What you've got to do is learn to manage the stress properly, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Stoicism, because you can take two people and put them in identical situations, and one of them will worry up an ulcer, as Granddaddy Barry used to say, right? And their cortisol will be sky high. They're not sleeping good. The other person in the same exact situation is like, oh, well, okay, whatever. And so learning how to accept the stress in your life, learning that a stumbling block can also be looked at as a stepping stone, learning that adversity can be looked at as an opportunity. The same exact thing in your life. You can say, oh my God, look at this terrible thing. Or you can go, oh my God, look at this opportunity for me to grow and get stronger and become more resilient. It's just your mindset. And I know some people just their go-to is to get upset and worry right now. But and there's some of those people watching right now, I'm talking to you. You can change that. Learning how to do this, it's a muscle. Just like when Kelly's lifting her weights or when she's walking, she didn't used to like that at all. No. If you had suggested that to her, she would have been like, I got stuff to do. I don't have time for that.
Yes.
She learned She practiced it over and over. And you can practice these mental exercises that when something bad happens in your life, and Nisha and I do this every day. Sometimes it's a joke. Sometimes we mean it. When something flares up, like when a tree falls on the farm, it's now standard in our house to say, it's good that that happened.
Mm.
And that if you'll just start saying that every time something bad happens in your life,
Yeah.
that you feel like you have no control over, just say, I'm glad that happened, or it's good that this happened. Now let's figure out how that's a good thing.
Yeah, you start collecting evidence for whatever it is we told ourselves. So first thing in the morning, we say, Lord, I'm going to look for every way you're making this a good day. You'll literally just collect evidence throughout the day. I
Absolutely.
like it. I like it all. If we stop the video right here, I think, boom, people have a lot of stuff to work at. And it would be way safer to stop right there, Dr. Barry.
Let's not do it. What do you say?
Okay. Let's say you've got somebody who is really working at these things. And as simple as that list sounds, frankly, we could all spend the rest of our days just continuing to hone in on those things. I don't think there's anyone who can say, even though people will, well, I'm doing all of that perfectly. I'm already doing everything. I've tried everything. You know, those people, the I've tried everything. They're still struggling to get some of the results that some of us get from that exact list.
And let me just say,
Yes.
for those of you saying that's not fair, you're right. It's
Right.
not fair. I totally
Yep.
agree.
Me too. Me too. And you and I both, we are shooting for this 80%, but obviously it's not because we don't care for the 20. It's just sometimes there are deeper issues going on that simply diet and lifestyle may not be enough. You're a doctor, you know you've had to do some other things.
Yep.
But for the most part, if everybody did that list, it's going to fix a lot. So I want to ask your opinion on three things. I have no idea what you're going to say, and one that I think I kind of do. And the first one is peptides and GLPs.
Yeah.
This has hit pretty close to home for me recently. I just shared a video on Saturday where my husband came out of the peptide closet. He is currently taking a very small dose, 1.25 milligrams of tirzepatide. He has not had a single day of nausea. He's hitting his protein goals. I'm watching him like a hawk. We're monitoring his muscle mass. He's lifting weights. He's already doing a lot of these things.
Yep.
But when it came time to cut out carbs, he really struggled. And now it's really easy for him. I have never heard you give your opinion on whether or not peptides are good or bad. I think you are probably like most of us. The traditional dosing is horrible. Not being able to eat, all of that was horrible. But I'm just curious your thoughts and experiences on doing it maybe a little better.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you're talking about the GLP-1 agonists,
Yes.
like Byetta, Victoza, Ozempic. And so I'm licensed and board certified, have been for decades, and I've taken care of thousands and thousands of people with obesity. There is a population of people who can benefit from short-term low-dose usage of medications like that. I have been prescribing these medications literally since 2005. The first one that ever came out was Byetta, and it was an injection you had to take multiple times. It's much more of a pain in the butt than it is now. But I had people who they just weren't gonna fix their diet. And so let me be clear, as a family physician, my goal is for my patient not to have a heart attack, not to have a stroke, not to have kidney failure, not to have terrible bad things that we can't come back from happen. Right? And so for those people that are like, I'm not changing my diet. And you can call me a sugar addict, whatever, I don't care. I'm just not going to fix that. For those people, I absolutely think that something like Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro is a viable option, but with a few caveats, which I'll get to. So do not take the full dose. Do not take the full dose. Do not take the full dose. I think the risk of long-term complications and side effects have not been studied nearly thoroughly enough. But we do have 20 years of data on the lower doses of things like Byetta and Victoza and Bydureon. We have that data.
Okay.
For 20 years, 25 years, long time, we've got the data on using those lower doses. And they seem to be as safe as many other prescription drugs.
Yeah.
But to use this new higher dose, that makes me very uncomfortable. There's no long-term safety data. Now, I don't want people to use this as an excuse to just give up on their diet and get on Ozempic or Wegovy. That's not my goal. I want you to fix this the right way, going to a real doctor who cares about them and is monitoring things and gives them a low dose. I think that it's perfectly safe and fine for short-term use because, as well as I do, I think maybe you used to have this, like food would literally call to you like a demon.
All day. Food noise all day.
All day, food noise. And that's a huge thing for some people. For some people, it's not that big a deal.
Right.
And so for those people who can fix this the right way, do it the right way. But there are some people who are consumed by food noise and food voices all day long. Yeah. And they just cannot. And a low dose of one of these can quiet that food noise and give them back control of their brain so that they can start to make better choices consciously. And then what that's going to turn into is habits and patterns, long-term habits and patterns. And so if you're on just a low dose of this for 3 months or 6 months, that's about as long as I would recommend it to quiet that food noise. If that's a huge problem for you, I think that's a fine use of a relatively safe tool. Low dose, short-term, strategic use that's a absolute answer for a lot of people who just suffer from nonstop food noise.
I'm very thankful to hear you say that. I'm feeling really positive about what James is doing right now. Yep. Somebody just yesterday said, if I were to start a low dose of, say, tirzepatide, what advice would you give me to do differently than what you normally recommend for carnivore? I said, nothing. Keep eating meat, keep avoiding everything we've already just talked about. Avoid the seed oils, go outside, move your body. I would just say keep closer track on your muscle mass via either a DEXA scan or some type of body composition scale. Keep even closer tabs to make sure you're eating enough.
That's why I still stick with eating till you're comfortably stuffed, because for many people, this, especially women, sometimes when they start eating lots of protein and fat, their appetite seemingly just shuts down.
Yes.
And it's like, you're like, oh my God, they're not eating enough protein or they're not eating enough total food. And in many cases, especially if their BMI is super high, they are eating enough for them currently, because not only are they getting access to the fat, they're getting access to the connective tissue that's made of protein that was holding the fat in place. They're using that as well. And so I think as the BMI comes down, their appetite will naturally ramp up as they get closer to their ideal body weight. But let's give an example of somebody who started keto or carnivore 20 times. And they're like, I do good for 3 or 4 days, or I do good for a week. And then the voices in my head, the food noise, I fall off the wagon every time. That'd be another great use case to talk to a good doctor who understands low carb keto and say, look, I just need a low dose of this just to quiet that food noise so I can make it more than 3 days or make it more than a week into eating a proper human diet. And so that I can actually start to establish habits and patterns that I can then kind of fall back on when times get tough. I think that's another great use case for the GLP-1 agonists.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for discussing that. I appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to interrupt myself for a minute. This is not a commercial. This is not an ad for electrolytes. I promise. I was just now walking on my walking pad and editing this video with Dr. Berry. I really loved everything he had to say. He's Dr. Berry, right? Love it. I agree with everything he's saying. And I'm incredibly thankful that he was willing to have that conversation about it. If you watched the Dr. Boz video that I put out a couple of weeks ago, you may have heard a slightly different tone there. So Dr. Berry is mostly talking about using a GLP-1 agonist to simply help people get started once you're on the carnivore diet, then come off of it. And that is certainly a tactic. My gosh, that's exactly what I hope will happen for my husband, that he can be on this for a little while, develop some new habits, get rid of food noise, cut out the carbs, lose some weight, and then taper off of it and live happily ever after. I have no idea if that's how it's going to go yet. We shall see. I'm sure there are some of you watching this video going, I can't believe Kelly and Dr. Berry would even think about encouraging someone to use even a low dose of peptides. I know. I can't believe we're discussing it either. Quite frankly, I have never used a peptide because I have never felt that I needed to. For me, the food noise went away when I cut out all sweet taste, and it never came back because I never brought back the sweet taste. Not a single sweet taste in over 15 years. So my little lizard brain of addiction has just been comatose. For those of you who are really upset that we would even consider such a thing, I do get where you're coming from. For me, the answer has just been carnivore. Well, carnivore and some walks and some sun and some sleep. You know the drill. We just talked about it. We just talked about this. But I do have some good friends who are doing those foundational things. They are. They're not using peptides as their excuse. They're already doing the things that maybe you and I are already doing, but they're not always getting the exact same results. It may be similar to how I do carnivore and I don't take any electrolytes. I do carnivore and I'm not vitamin D deficient. I do carnivore and right, and it's working really well. But if somebody says, gosh, I got my electrolytes tested and they were still low, so I'm adding some, or my vitamin D is low, so I make sure to get more sun and take vitamin D, or however you want to deal with that. There are some people who are doing the foundational things. They're not non-starters like my wonderful husband. They're not using the GLPs to just get started. They're using it because something else was still missing. And I think the main takeaway from Dr. Berry and myself is that there is a better way to use them if you have to use them. So I think the best case scenario would be you don't need them at all. You don't need them at all. You just eat meat and feel great. It's cheaper that way, and you don't have to fool with a needle one. Just eat meat and feel great. So I would say, yes, that's best. But then there's better and there's kind of terrible. And I would say that in the past, we've just seen it done really terribly with the high doses and not focusing on monitoring our muscle mass and not lifting weights and not getting the foundation right, just using peptides as this cheat code to not do the work. But that's not how I'm seeing people use them these days. I'm seeing people who are doing the foundational work, and this is like a little missing piece, and they're trying to do it in the best way possible. In my groups, I'm definitely not trying to push peptides on anybody. I have ways of getting them. I am living with a man who is on them, so I'm trying to, I'm doing my own little guinea pig research here. I want to be knowledgeable, and I want to be able to offer information and those resources to the people that I work with. I also very much recommend that people give all of the foundational things like carnivore a really solid shot. Okay, maybe a really solid not shot before you then turn to other things. Like, give it a chance. See if this could work. And then if you need the extra help to either get started or the extra help, because my gosh, a low and slow dose just makes you feel so much better and has those neuroprotective effects and cardiovascular protective effects. I support carnivore completely without the use of a peptide. That's what I'm living. And I also support my husband who needed it to help him get started. And I also support my friends who say, yeah, I felt so much better on carnivore, but this is like my little extra tool in the toolbox. Dr. Berry and I are now going to move on to other topics, but I just wanted to share that in case you are either the person screaming, I can't believe they're okay with people using these, or you're the person screaming, I'm not on peptides to cut out carbs. I did that years ago. I'm using these as a tool to help me refine my results, and so that my body reawakens these GLP receptors and that I can get a leg up to where other people already are on their carnivore diet. Okay. As my friend Danny Conway says, there's a little food for thought. Back to the rest of the topics. I appreciate that. Okay. Second thing I haven't heard you discuss, but something that I've been playing around with is called fat fasting, which is typically when somebody eats nothing but pure fat
Yep.
for typically 24 hours. You wouldn't do this every day any more than you would do water fasting every day, right? It's just a very temporary thing. But some people find that it is much easier, me being one of them. I'm not a water faster, but I can fat fast like a champion. My energy goes up. For those that check glucose and ketones, typically glucose goes down, ketones go up, energy is through the roof. And then the next day, return to standard carnivore. Have you worked with anybody or experienced any fat fasting?
Yeah, I actually do this myself sometimes
Get out.
with butter.
Yeah.
Some days I'm just not that hungry. Maybe some days I'm not that happy with what the scale says, and then I'm just like, I'm not that hungry today. If I get a little hungry, I'm just gonna eat a big spoonful of butter. Sometimes I'll do that all day. Sometimes I'll just do it until 6, 7 p.m. and then I'll eat a meal. I think that's fine because that's going to give you the energy you need without causing any, because as well as I do, Kelly, that eating, that food is so tied up into so many family
Yes.
things, so many social things, so many religious things, so many emotional things.
Yeah.
And some of those things have been hardwired in your brain since you were a little kid. And so I like these things. I like the sardine fast for the same reason. I like the butter fast. And it's kind of weird to call them a fast. Maybe
I know.
a challenge, a fat challenge, or
Yeah.
a sardine challenge, because you're eating
Yes.
energy, you're eating food. So it's not really a fast. And I think that's one of the ways that a butter challenge or a sardine challenge really helps people, is to break those weird things that maybe go back to childhood.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Just being able to say to yourself, am I sardine hungry? Am I fat hungry? Am I butter hungry? And
Yep.
sometimes like, well, no, but I was pork rind hungry.
Right.
Right?
I
But
was carnivore bar hungry. I was
yeah.
keto brick hungry. But if all I can have is sardines or butter, I'm not really hungry.
Yeah.
I think that reveals something about us that we may not know consciously. Oh, okay. So, and I think for many people who used to have problem with eating disorders and with either overeating or undereating, or using food for emotional support, using food to fight boredom, using food to fight stress, that's a key question. Am I butter hungry? Am I sardine hungry? Am I hamburger patty hungry?
Yep.
And if you're like, no, I'm not, then, guess what? You're not starving. Because if you were starving, you would eat a raw hamburger patty and you would eat some butter that you found on the floor.
Yes.
If you were truly hungry, right?
Yes.
Sardines that you found laying beside the road if you were truly, truly hungry. So if you're not willing to eat a can of fresh sardines, you're not truly hungry. It's not physiological hunger that you're feeling right now. And then your monkey mind says, well, what is it that I'm feeling right now? And that's gonna improve your mental health. Because when you ask that question, then you start looking around going, yeah, why did I go to the fridge just now if I'm not truly hungry?
Yes.
What made me do that? Then you start going, maybe I was bored. Maybe I'm upset. Maybe, and then you see how some people have been self-soothing with food for decades,
Yes.
but they don't know that's what they've been doing until that happens. And they're like, so I've been doing this my entire life. I've been eating food to treat boredom or to treat stress or to treat loneliness or to treat sadness, but I wasn't truly hungry. And that's an epiphany for many people. They're like, okay, that helps me greatly now to know the difference between true physiological hunger and I was self-soothing because of this other negative emotion.
I love it. It's harder. You have to dig deeper. You can't just shove food in your mouth. But
Right.
I agree. On a fat fast, I've done fat fasting with pure beef fat, just the trimmed off. You just ask the butcher, could I have a pound? Also, that is cheap eating right there. A lot of butchers will give it to you for free because that will keep you satisfied. But it is one of those things where the idea of eating straight up beef fat is terrible unless you're hungry.
Right.
A good litmus test for hunger.
Yeah.
Okay. The third one makes me a little nervous to talk to you too, because I do sometimes have my group members do some food tracking. And I know that in general, if I were trying to convince my next door neighbor who is diabetic and obese and struggling with health, if they were to say, wow, how did you lose your weight? I would never start with, let's talk calories. You need a tracking app. Never. You and I know we're on the same page. You start with what you're eating, not how much you're eating.
Yep.
But I work with mostly women, and mostly women over age 50 who have decades of dieting, hardcore dieting under their belts, and they have eaten less and less and less. They have forced themselves to ignore their hunger signals.
Yep.
And they come to me and they say, I'm eating to satiety every day, and I've done that for 10 months and I haven't lost a pound. And you're like, you've eaten nothing but meat for 10 months and you're still obese and you haven't lost a pound. So then if I, after a conversation where I can't get to the heart of what are you eating, just figuring it out. Cause sometimes it's like, oh, so it was chicken nuggets from Wendy's that were rolled in flour. Okay. Or,
Right.
oh, it was a keto bar. That's not even meat. But if they're truly doing carnivore,
Yep.
one of my tools is, could you just track your food for a few days for me? Because I'll tell you the most common response. They're barely getting 1,000 calories, Dr. Berry. They're eating so little. And when I ask people to track, I have literally had people say, Dr. Berry says we don't need to track our calories. And I do
Yep.
have sort of a similar conversation like I just had. That's not where we start. But
Yep.
I need to figure out, what are you doing over there?
Yep. And I totally get that. And so there's several things, and I'll try to be able to think of all of them. So the first thing is, if you track their protein and fat macros, you're going to find the same information as if you track their calories.
Yeah.
They're just not eating enough total food.
Yes.
And the term calorie and the use of the term calorie has been so conflated and confused that I find it to not be helpful for most people. But try this the next time you have a lady like that. Just track her protein and fat macros, and you're going to go, oh my God, you're not eating nearly enough fat and protein. You'll find the same thing. So that's number one. Number two, in that population that you're talking about, I very often find an undiagnosed hypothyroidism or an undiagnosed adrenal condition or an undiagnosed sex hormone deficiency. But I'm not opposed to that at all. But for the vast majority of people, counting calories is just dumb. I totally agree with you. There is such a thing as undereating.
Yeah.
And that people that have undereaten for so many years that their metabolic rate is glacially slow.
Yes.
And that for bumping up, you need to eat more food.
Yep.
At least short term will unstick that stall in many cases. But for every single one of those, I know you, because you're very judicious. You're sending them, you got to go get your thyroid checked, you got to go get your sex hormones, your adrenals, you got to get all that checked. But yeah, I think for some, especially, and it's usually women, I agree with you, they just need to eat more for at least a short period of time. And I think they've been in like starvation mode for so many years that their body just holds on to every atom, every molecule. It's like, I'm storing that right now because obviously we've been starving to death for 20 years now. And that can help convince their physiology, you're not starving. There's food everywhere. For some people, just eating more fat and protein.
Yeah.
Because that's the macros that you don't get in a true starvation scenario. You're basically foraging for carbs if you're truly starving as a human animal.
Right.
And for most people, when they start eating carnivore or meat heavy keto, that signal of all that fat and protein is like, oh no, the famine's over. We can start burning this fat we've stored. But for some people, I think you need to really press the eat more meat than you really want to eat for at least a while. I totally agree.
Yeah.
But the tracking is huge. I totally agree with you. I'll tell you a story without naming names. I had a lady in our group who's super intelligent, super successful, super articulate. And she's like, I don't know. I've been eating carnivore for months, like you said, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. And so I'm like, okay. And I sat down with her. I seen her at a conference. I'm like, okay, what did you have for breakfast this morning? She told me every single thing. What did you have last night? And turns out she was eating carnivore, except she was eating a keto brick a day.
Oh.
And I'm like, but she had told me multiple times that she's an honest person and very intelligent. She had said, I'm 100% carnivore multiple times. And then I'm like, carnivore keto bricks are not carnivore, not at all.
It's not
Why
meat.
do you think you need an extra how many grams of protein and fat a day? And she's like, well, they're so delicious. I'm like, I know, they're really tasty,
Yeah.
but that's why carnivore, and that you're literally in some, you would say you're eating an extra 1,000 calories a day.
Yep. Yeah.
But in reality, she was just eating. And so it gets complicated, Kelly. You know that.
Okay.
But some things are much more overeatable than other things.
Yeah.
Really hard to overeat meat. It's really
Yes.
hard to do it, and most people don't. But something that's chocolatey and sweet, especially if you used to be an overeater, you can overeat that all day long. So she was eating her full portion on carnivore
Yeah.
and then eating an extra keto brick a day. And it just had never dawned on this intelligent woman that was the problem, because she had heard people, influencers she trusted talk about keto brick. And
Yeah.
I'm not dogging keto brick. I think it's fine. It has a purpose. But it was not for her. And
Right.
that was what was stalling her weight for, I don't remember, 6, 8, 10 months. And as soon as she stopped that, she started losing weight.
Yeah.
And so I think working with a coach, if you've been stalled for, let's say, more than 3 months, that's really
Right.
when my cutoff for a stall, a
Yeah.
true stall. Get all your hormones checked from top to bottom and work with a health coach. And part of that work is sending them a picture of every single thing that goes in your mouth,
Yes.
liquid or solid, food or drink, a picture of everything to your coach, because very, very often the coach will go, what's that right there?
Yeah.
Well, no, so and so said that. No, no, stop that immediately, and that fixes the problem. But then for some women, especially over 50, I think they just need to eat more meat and push the eggs, push the beef tallow, push the beef fat for a while to basically slap their metabolism around and make it go, no, dummy, there's not a famine. Stop.
Yes.
The metabolic rate.
Yeah, I love the term reverse diet, right? Come out of a diet after 20 years, for Pete's sakes.
Yeah.
Let your body know it's okay to let go of some of this. We're not dying. Yeah, I like that. Also, there's a reason I've never tasted a keto brick. I get sent a lot of products that I have never opened because I don't trust myself at all. At all.
Same. Some stuff I can't touch. I just know better.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, oh, that looks super yummy. I'm not touching that.
No, no. Okay, the last one you kind of touched on it when it comes to bioidentical hormones and thyroid meds. I have a handbook for all of my members, and part of it is a whole section about lab work. It includes a link to your book, links to your videos where you recommend the top 10, top most basic 5. I asked you once about the top 5 labs if you're only going to get 5. And
Yep.
and I include all of that in there because I'm with you. Some of it is, wow, there is definitely something else going on. I got to work with them on what to get tested and look for. But when they do get those things tested and they come back to you, I have heard you say some positive things about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and
Yeah.
thyroid meds. So could you just talk about that a bit?
Yeah. And so hypothyroidism is real. That's a real thing. And many people suffer from that. And many doctors miss that diagnosis because they don't check enough lab work to really dig deep into the thyroid physiology. It's usually women, but it can also be men. So if anybody's been stalled and they know their keto or their carnivore diet has been tight, and you're like, I haven't lost anything, no inches, no pounds in 3 months, you got to get a full thyroid panel checked, and probably your adrenals and your sex hormones as well. Now, I only recommend that you take a desiccated thyroid hormone replacement like Armor, Nature, WP, NP, or in Canada, it's called ERFA, ERFA.
Okay.
You need that because you need real T4 hormone, not fake T4 like that you'll find in Synthroid or levothyroxine. Those are made in a chemical factory. They resemble the thyroid, the T4 molecule, but they're not exactly right. And for some people, they don't help enough. Some people, Synthroid's fine. It does fine for them. Okay. But there is a significant subset that they need the real stuff that also includes T3 and T2 and T1 and T0 and calcitonin, all of which are in desiccated thyroid, but do not occur in Synthroid or levothyroxine. So that's I've seen some cases of Hashimoto's thyroiditis that's reversible with diet. Their antibodies will come down and they don't need thyroid medication as long as their diet remains tight and clean. But even for some people with Hashimoto's, their symptoms are so severe that they need a desiccated thyroid hormone, at least temporarily, to get them over the hump. And so if get the full thyroid panel, if you need, and then let me say this, your symptoms, your low thyroid symptoms are just as important as what your black and white lab results are.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say your TSH is 5.0 and your doctor's not like, yeah, that's close enough to normal. That's not a big deal, but you've got severe low thyroid symptoms. You need to find a doctor who will prescribe you at least a 90-day trial of thyroid replacement hormone. Now, the sex hormones. So this again is your symptoms are just as important as what your black and white numbers are. So let's say we've got a 60-year-old woman who went through menopause at 40, or she had her ovaries removed at 40. Either way.
Okay.
And she's like, I keep hearing about bioidenticals and everybody raving about it. But I feel great. I've been following Kelly Hogan. I'm on carnivore. My energy's great. I sleep great. My motivation for life is great. I'm always eager and willing to go, even in the bedroom.
Nice.
Do I need hormone replacement? My answer to her would be, I don't really care what your lab results are.
Yeah.
You probably don't need it, and you probably won't benefit from it.
Right.
But if that same woman's like, yeah, I've been lifting weights, but I can't build any muscle at all.
Yeah.
My doctor said I've got osteoporosis. I don't have any get up and go. I want to, but I don't really want to. Right. That kind of stuff. Then if your testosterone and progesterone, which are the first two to drop, most doctors focus on estrogen, but your progesterone and your testosterone levels can drop decades before your estrogen drops and you start getting hot flashes and night sweats. And so I absolutely get your total testosterone, your estradiol, and your progesterone levels checked. And if they're low and you have all those symptoms, try a 90-day trial of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I'm a big fan of that if you need it. Now, I'll tell you, we've had multiple people in our private community. Let's talk about the men first and testosterone.
Okay.
We've had men who either went carnivore or red meat heavy, keto or ketovore, and started lifting heavy things, working out, raised their testosterone with just those two interventions, anywhere from 50 to 450 points in 90 days. So I want everybody to try the diet route and the lifestyle route first. Try that first. Because you imagine a guy that raised his testosterone 450 points.
No. Yeah.
He doesn't need testosterone optimization. He needs to teach a class on testosterone optimization. But that doesn't happen for every man. Some men get 20-point elevations. Like, okay, I'm still at 350. That's no good. Yeah. They need to go talk to somebody about bioidentical TRT. So for the women, try high-fat carnivore for 90 days. And then if you have low hormones, sex hormones, and you have symptoms, try high-fat carnivore for 90 days and try to go for that brisk walk, lift some weights, try your best and then recheck it after 90 days. First, you're going to say, are my symptoms better? If your answer is, yeah, I feel much better, I feel amazing, I'm happy, you're done. But if you're like, maybe I feel a little better, but not much, and my testosterone and progesterone are effectively zero, and I still feel kind of yucky, you need to probably try a 90-day trial of bioidentical hormone optimization. And many doctors only focus on the estrogen. That's not the complete answer for women. We think of testosterone as a male hormone, but that is false. It is a male and a female hormone. Women need a certain amount too if they're going to feel their best. And so make sure your doctor is going to address all three of those hormones and try it for 90 days. And then at the end of that 90 days, you can objectively judge, I feel amazing, or not really worth the time and money, in which case you can just keep focusing on lifestyle and diet. Does that make sense?
So much sense. Yes. I think people want to start with, did somebody say GLPs and hormones and food tracking and calories? What we're saying here is, did you hear the first 10 minutes of this interview?
Right.
Seriously, start there, because you could save, first of all, a lot of heartache and also a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, like with the basics, a lot of people say, get your foundations right. And that's,
100%. It all starts with the food you eat and the junk you avoid. Keep in mind, Kelly, that you could take somebody who is severely obese, their BMI is 60, and you could have them start smoking crystal meth, and in 6 months they could be thin as a rail. Now, would they be healthy?
no.
Would they be optimized? Would they be a shining light that everybody needs to emulate?
Right.
No. No, they wouldn't. So you can do lots of artificial things with pharmaceuticals and with drugs and with hormones. I think anybody who follows me or you knows that's not what we're advocating here.
Right.
We're saying maybe use some of these things as a tool. It all starts with what you eat and what you avoid. It all starts with how you live your life, move your body, eat real human food. That's the foundation. And if you're watching this and that you're like, yeah, I don't care about any of that, I just want the Ozempic, that's going to be a problem later on. That's not going to give you the long-term, vibrant, robust health you're looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
It might give you temporary weight loss, but I don't, that is that really your goal? And you may say yes, but I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think that's really your long-term goal. I think you want to be super healthy and vigorous and vibrant and somebody that other people look at and want to emulate. I think that's what you really want. You're only going to get that if food and lifestyle is your foundation. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, Dr. Berry, I don't know of any not weird or creepy way to say this, but I feel like in this community, people look to you as like Papa Carnivore, Papa Keto. Like, do we have Dr. Berry's permission to think about some of these other things?
Yeah,
And
definitely. Yes. Yes, definitely.
yes,
Yeah, consider those things. We have lots of tools in the chest. And for somebody to say, never use that tool, even
yeah,
though millions of people and thousands of doctors use them every day, I feel like that's short-sighted. And I get the motivation from other influencers who they're trying to have a pure message.
yeah,
But my reply to that would be, ain't nothing in life pure. Okay, my friend, we got over that when we were 5 years old and found out that Santa wasn't real. Life is complicated.
yeah,
Life is mucky. Life is messy.
yeah,
That right?
right.
So let's kind of leave the moral judgment at the door. Let's leave the condescending belittling at the door. That doesn't really help anybody, and it also doesn't make you look like more of an authority. It just kind of makes you look militant, like a carnivore Nazi or a keto Nazi. Nobody really needs that in their life, really. So maybe tone that rhetoric down just a little bit and realize that people need help. They need real, rational, logical help, and that may include pharmaceuticals. I hope it doesn't. Let me be
Right.
very clear. I hope they can do it with just food, and I want the majority of people to try to do it with just food and lifestyle.
Yeah.
But there's a subset of people that might need that pharmaceutical intervention at a low dose temporarily, and I better not catch any of my friends in the keto and the carnivore space judging them publicly. You can have your own opinions, but keep that
Yes.
to yourself. But if you're talking about these people publicly, you need to stop that.
I love you, man. Thank you. Thank you. You genuinely have a heart for the people who are trying so hard and just want to feel good and get what the rest of us are getting. And I really, truly respect you for that. So thank you for coming back on the channel and for sharing. This is gold, and I'm really grateful for you passing it on.
It's my pleasure. And I just want to remind everybody, although every time I'm on Kelly's show, we talk about carnivore, I've got over 1,500 YouTube videos, and I talk about virtually every medical diagnosis in the book. I talk about many prescription medications, ones to avoid, ones to take if you need them. And so I've got so many videos, it's hard to scroll through them all. So if you just use the search function on YouTube,
Yep.
like if you currently have fatty liver or hypertension, or you currently have whatever, you can just type in the search engine, Dr. Berry hypertension, Dr. Berry Cushing's disease, Dr. Berry whatever, and you'll see if I have a video. I don't just talk about carnivore stuff. I'm a family physician, and I try to talk about the global aspects of just being healthy, and that includes using pharmaceuticals sometimes. And so I probably have a video on it, but you got to type in the search bar to find it.
That is exactly what I do probably 10 times every week of the year is Dr. Barry and whatever problem somebody comes to me with. And you're right. There's probably a video.
Yeah. So don't forget that to use that as a tool as well. We've got lots of tools in our toolbox. We need to use them all.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
I was going to save that for a few weeks, but I feel like, gosh, I got to get that out right now. It's really good.
Yeah, let's get it out there. I'll promote it to the heavens.